Good evening and a very warm welcome to the Black Hole. Today we are gathered here to discuss Frantz Fanon. Doctor हैं, revolutionary theorist, pan-Africanist, and a towering anti-racist and anti-colonial thinker, जिनके नज़रियात, जिनके अफकार और जिनकी contribution ने एक ज़माने को घायल किया है. मिसाल के तौर पे आपकी जो insights हैं, they have shaped fields like post-colonial studies, psychiatry, इंटरनेशनल रिलेशंस एंड रेवोल्यूशनरी मूवमेंट्स. और इस मौजू का जो आइडिया है वो डॉक्टर आरिफ आज़ाद ने हमें दिया, जो मेरे दाएं जानिब तशरीफ़ फरमाए. आज के गेस्ट स्पीकर हैं. बहुत शुक्रिया सर आपका. आपकी पोस्ट ग्रेजुएट डिग्रीज़ हैं इन पब्लिक हेल्थ एंड पब्लिक पॉलिसी फ्राम स्वीडन एंड लंदन. आलमी इदारों, INGOs और थिंक टैंक वगैरह के लिए आप एज अ कंसल्टेंट एक वसी तजर्बा रखते हैं. लॉन्ग टाइम मेंबर हैं ऑफ द UK लेबर पार्टी. क्लोजली एसोसिएटेड हैं विद फॉर्मर लीडर Jeremy Corbyn, contributing to his leadership campaigns. Moreover, Dr. Azad has been actively involved in civil and black rights movements in the UK and has collaborated with the esteemed journal Race and Class, known for its focus on anti-colonial thought and third world liberation. आज के सेशन की मॉडरेशन मेज़बानी की ज़िम्मेदारी निभा रहे मेरे बाएं जानिब तशरीफ़ फरमाएँ ख़याम मुशीर साहब. राइटर हैं, कॉलमिस्ट हैं. आपकी जो दिलचस्पी के मौज़ूआत हैं वो हैं आर्ट, लिटरेचर, पॉलिटिक्स एंड करंट अफेयर्स एट्सेट्रा. आप सब लोगों की आमद का शुक्रिया. प्लीज़ अपने सेल फोन्स थोड़ी सी जहमत करके साइलेंट मोड में शिफ्ट कर दें ताकि किसी किस्म की डिस्ट्रैक्शन ना हो. बाहमी गुफ्तगू के बाद जैसा कि यहाँ की रवायत है कि हाउस ओपन किया जाता है फॉर Q&A, जिसमें आप लोग शरीक हो सकते हैं. सिर्फ आपने अपना हाथ बुलंद करना है. फिर माइक्रोफोन आने के बाद आप अपना इज़हार ख्याल कीजिएगा. शॉर्ट और टू द पॉइंट रहिएगा ताकि ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा साथी जो हैं इस मुकालमे, इस गुफ्तगू में शरीक हो सकें. एंड आई थिंक दैट्स इट. नाउ प्लीज़ वेलकम ख़याम मुशीर एंड आवर गेस्ट स्पीकर डॉक्टर आरिफ आज़ाद.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you, Dr. Arif, for giving us this opportunity to revisit Fanon. I know that the last month or so you've been deeply entrenched in Frantz Fanon. It's been a bit of a voyage of rediscovery for you, I think. And
Yes,
the trigger has been this wonderful biography that has been published by Adam Schatz, The Rebels Clinic. Yeah. And so, you know, I understand that we've had many conversations around this in the last month, and so much of it we understand, as we will unpack and try to unpack today. Fanon is so relevant to our current times, not only in an international context, but also in a very local context, which we will also discuss. But, you know, just for the audience, and I'm going to just jump right into this so that without further ado, so that we grasp Fanon from where he has started, you know, being plagued with these, being troubled by this idea of colonization and its impact. We are in the 1950s. This is a time of great upheaval. It is a time of great decolonization. India has won its independence. So has Ghana, when we arrive into the point in time when Fanon, a young psychiatrist, is working in the French Antilles, and is first-hand witnessing the sort of the trauma of colonization amongst the local populace in the French Antilles. But also Ghana has been liberated, Vietnam has been liberated, India has been liberated. So a lot of the work of decolonization has already begun on the world stage. And in the 1950s, this young psychiatrist is so incensed and is so sort of provoked with his work in psychiatry that he then starts penning down his first seminal work, which is Black Skin, White Masks. So can you tell us a little bit of how the young Frantz Fanon's understanding of decolonization is taking place at this point in time, and how he sort of articulates it in Black Skin, White Masks?
Yes, I mean, thank you very much. Yes, for giving me opportunity, and I mean, thank you for coming in, you know, such great numbers. Okay, I mean, let me talk about the where and when of the man first. I will be very brief, and then we will jump into like what key ideas shaped his anti-colonial thing and how, yes, he came to the authorships of the book, which he authored later on. Yes, and Frantz Fanon was born in Martinique in 1925. So this year's is 100 birth centenary of Frantz Fanon. And yes, I mean Martinique is in West Indies. Yes, and French.
Also the French.
Yes, and
Antilles,
possessions
yeah.
for a very long time, and it is very like deeply racial, society, racially divided society, and I mean that's where he's born and he grew up, and I mean then he joins at the age of 19. I mean Free French Forces, and he goes to fight in North Africa, and he discovers in North Africa that the French army is also like deeply, racially divided. And there is hierarchy of people, the way they are treated. I mean, as he comes from the Martinique, so he's on a higher order of, racial hierarchy. He's, considered like French. He was a French national. And he, suddenly finds that, the treatment of, troops from Senegal and also the Arab troops who were, the fighting for the French, they were, belittled, monstered, and also, racially constructed. And, that really hit him a lot. Okay, soon after the war, okay, he comes to France and he starts, studying psychiatry at, Lyon. And that's where this idea of being, racially different, black, begins to take hold in him. And, those experiences, formed the basis of his first book, which was actually thesis, which he wrote for his, the final classes in psychiatry. And it was very controversial. His, supervisor advised against its, publication, but he went ahead anyway. So the first book is black skin, white masks. And it is basically the key influences in the book are, Sartre, Jean-Paul, Sartre and his, other, philosophers.
So Rousseau was a big influence,
yes,
of course.
Yes, Rousseau, also Hegel in particular, where he uses his idea of the self. And his idea of the self was that the idea of self is only, reinforced if you recognize, in somebody else. If you don't recognize the contribution of another human being, so his self is not actualized. So this key insight he used in the work as well. And then he used the theme of, the white gaze, which is, in Sartrean, construction, how the white gaze, fixes the black people, and how he is, the black is always under interrogations from the white gaze. So that was the other key insight which he used for the book. And I think the broader thesis is that blacks are racially constructed by the white gaze. And I think the book has very interesting chapters. It uses literature, music, all sorts of sources. And the other key influence, the last one, who was his teacher, Aimé Césaire. So, and Aimé Césaire was a politician in Martinique. His friend, he was a communist, and he was a very famous scientist. So the broader thesis is that you become black when you go to France, and that really makes you realize where you stand as a human being and how you are recognized by the other body. So it is the white gaze, and then there are like, 4 or 5 key chapters in the book. It is also about, cross-racial, like love. There are 2 chapters about when, like, a black woman marries a white man, how this, the power relations and how this case changes. And then when a when a black man, marries a white woman and how these, dynamics change. So these, experience, really, shape his outlook on the life. And about, colonialism, and in which he says, colonialism also imposes its, cultural imposition. That's how, the people are constructed, black and others. And I think other key important insight was the one where he says that, like Antillean, the Caribbean, they don't think themselves black. They think they are, the French. But, blacks are really the blacks who live in Africa, like, Senegalese and others. So they see this is his, and, then he uses these insights and he goes to, like, Algeria work as a, in psychiatrist. And, that's where his worldviews about, the racism and, colonialism and, decolonization really take shape.
Yeah.
And I think one of other things which I want to, highlight, that he changed the practice, because we hear a lot about, decolonizing medicine, decolonizing humanitarian sector, decolonizing academia. So he was, the father of, decolonization of psychiatry as well. And he, changed the practice of, psychiatry. When he was studying in Lyon, he met, he heard of this, very famous Spanish psychiatrist who had fled Spain, and he was working in, France. And he had changed the practice of, psychiatry, because he said, the way Western psychiatry deals with, non-Western patients, this is, very problematic. And, these patients have to be treated by looking overall at the, political, social, religious context of them. And this approach came to be known as social therapy or institutional therapy. And this he applied in Algeria a lot. And then he went from Algeria to Tunis. He also kept applying it. And so he was, psychiatrist at the daytime, and also very heavily involved in Algerian struggle for independence, about which he wrote a book, which is not that, famous, but and then he writes, Wretched of the Earth, which is, largely based upon his work with FLN, and also about his work as spokesman of the Algerian, revolutionary movement. So these 2, political roles, they also feed into, Wretched of the Earth.
Yeah.
Apart from his psychiatric outlook or other.
Yeah. So, of course, as you pointed out, he lives in Lyon. He's studying psychiatry. There are experiences in Lyon which really affect him. There is that encounter with a child on a bus. The child who hides his face in horror at seeing a black man. This really moves him, and he's unable to get over it. At the same time, there is a struggle within Fanon also, because he is essentially recognized as a part of the colonized elite, and he doesn't face the same discrimination or racism that he sees is being exacted. So that is something he's dealing with also. At the same time, we as you pointed out, some of the influences that have now they've begun to shape his outlook. We were discussing the other day, and how would we describe Fanon? And you pointed out that he was Jacobean in his approach, Sartrean in his language, and copied Rousseau. Embodied Rousseau in his spirit.
Yeah.
So there are these 3 influences, but we know that his main sort of influence and his main inspiration during this time remains Jean-Paul Sartre. And of course, there are all the French left intellectual movements that he's engaging with. But it is truly Sartre's critique of pure reason that he voraciously reads. And he begins to formulate, I think, his understanding, which will eventually lead into his own very unique theories of decolonization and how to go about it in Wretched of the Earth. So if we, I would like to talk a little bit more about these literary influences on him, and particularly Sartre, and how, because that's very unique how that relationship eventually evolves, and it has a counter impact. It has in fact a reverse impact on Sartre as well.
Yeah.
So if we can talk a little bit about
I think Sartre was the key influence on him, and at the time he was writing and living in Algeria. Psychoanalysis movement was also quite a thing, but coming back to Sartre, even in his book, in Black Skin and White Skin, even in relation to racism, he quotes Sartre a lot. And I think one of his important work in terms of, the racism is anti-Semitism and the Jews. And that is the key text which he uses for the Black Skin and White Skin. But he makes a very important point in relation to, racism. Fanon argues that while racism against the Jews is very intellectuals, because they have, the economic power, they control business, politics, ideas. So, and also, they are white, so they do not face racism in terms of color. But, the racism against the blacks, he uses the insights from the anti-Semitism and the Jews and extrapolates it to black. And yes, and basically what he's, arguing is that, racism against, blacks is very, biological. That they are constructed as, the animal, they are subhuman, dehumanizations. And they're constructed in very, zoological terms.
Yeah.
And no intellectual attributes are accorded to them in that way. And then he quotes a lot of, literary, references from the European writers and also Martinican writers writing in French. That how, black is demonized in, literature, made invisible, and his existence is, denied, although he's, the visible, but at the same time he's also invisible. So that is one thing. The second thing is, he was very much involved in existential movement. And one of the key figure in the existentialist movement was, Ponty, I would just say. So he was very key figure. And I think his key thesis in existentialist movement was that you experience world through the body.
Merleau-Ponty, I think.
Yes.
Merleau-Ponty. Merleau-Ponty.
Yes, Merleau-Ponty thing. So he is saying that you experience the world through the body. Now the body takes a very, key center stage in the philosophy of him. And also the psychic, scars which, colonialism exercises on the colonized. And these, the scars, daily humiliations, and also microaggressions which, the black face in France or, anywhere in the Western world, and how they affect their psyche. And it is what's, फैज़ का वो शेर है ना, गिनो तुम हसरतें जो खूं हुई हैं तन के मक्तल में, मेरे कातिल हिसाबे खूं बहा ऐसे नहीं होता. So these are the very daily humiliations which really form his outlook and, the intellectual outlook. Then, of course, Adler, a bit of influence, also Freud. But he overturns, the Freud whole concept around, Oedipal complex. And, the bit of sexual element of his, philosophy, uses in Black Skin and White Mask. But, the basic thrust of his argument about, Oedipal complex, he overturns. And he kind of introduces what we call, sociogeny, that these thoughts are not, rooted in the Oedipal complex or others. They are the result of, social and political forces, and they have to be taken on. So he takes the whole focus from, Oedipal complex to, socio-economic factors. And I think that is his other also key, a contribution to psychoanalysis and also, critique of the whole thing. And then, political influences, in particular, the people working in FLN. This was, Rahman, Abdur Rahman. He was a key influence who actually taught him and he, introduced him to Algerian, rural, populations, also the leaders of the independence, the movements. And I think the operation of the independence and also the liberation movement shaped very key ideas which are in the, Wretched of the Earth. We will, talk about it later.
Yeah.
But that forms the very, very key,
Understood.
planks of his overall, philosophical
The
outlook.
underpinnings,
Yes.
the underpinnings,
Yeah.
certainly. And so this is really important because as we, of course, move towards his most seminal work, which is The Wretched of the Earth, we notice a difference between Fanon, of course, at this point in time, and his intellectual influences, his mentors, those who have fascinated him. And again, coming back particularly to Sartre, when you look at the critique of pure reason, Sartre's argument is basically around the scarcity, the concept of scarcity that colonization introduces into the lives of and the political, social, and cultural arrangements of the colonized. And Sartre argues that any project of decolonization must be aimed at eradicating this essential concept of scarcity. Sartre is very focused on action and praxis, and he despises what he refers to as the sterile formalists, which we will also talk about. But Fanon has taken a departure already from Sartre's sort of line of thinking, and he's formulating his own thinking as he begins writing the pages of The Wretched of the Earth, all the while imagining and hoping secretly that Sartre will write the preface to this book. And so that brings us to the key themes of The Wretched of the Earth, which is important. And I want to I'll turn it around. We were thinking that we'll do all of the themes, but first let's focus on this central theme of violence, because there are other intellectuals who have, acknowledged the resounding influence on their work. Edward Said, Hannah Arendt has gone on to applaud Fanon for his uniquely seminal way of sort of articulating the whole decolonization project, but they stand at a side immediately when they start discussing his focus on violence. And so I think the question that is very important for us today also is, as we've seen contemporary struggles against totalitarianism, against oppression, they have in a sense been violent. What is your view? Is counter-revolutionary emancipation possible without violence, or is Fanon absolutely correct in saying that decolonization can only be a violent project?
Yes. As far as Fanon is concerned, violence is very key, concept in, Wretched of the Earth. And he is basically saying that, in decolonization is inherently violent process. And I mean, colonial regime is always very violent in its daily operations as well. First of all, colonial world is very, compartmentalized. It is, white city or, the settler city plus the native city. Settler city is affluent and, rich, and, the native city is poor, slums, and I mean, the border between the settler city and the native city is maintained by, police lines and also the military, garrisons. These are the forces which enforce, colonial order. And I mean, this whole order is also economic infrastructures. I mean, you are rich because you are white, and you are, the white, that's why you are rich. So, but he says this economic infrastructure is also economic, the superstructures. And I mean, given this condition, these two camps are very much opposed to each other, and
antagonistic.
Yes, and I mean, there is tension on a daily basis. And I mean, this tension...
the muscular tension.
Yes, I mean, muscular tension. It, I mean, takes the shape of, the muscular tensions. And so this is very violent, regime. And in order to overthrow this order, and I mean, on the daily basis, I mean, you are inferiorized, you are like the checkpost, the subjugated.
And also, I think the inability of the colonized to freely express themselves contributes to what he calls this muscular tension.
Exactly.
This what he calls the sort of the erotic undercurrent of power and its sort of dehumanizing impact.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, he sees violence in in three ways.
Yeah.
It is only the weapons in the hands of, non-beings. And I mean, in order to assert yourself and in order to become something, you will have to resort to violence, in order to overthrow the colonial order. And he uses this, a biblical phrase, the last will be the first. And I mean, those who are nothing today, they will be everything, the tomorrow. So, decolonization for him is like a zero-sum game. So you have to get rid of, colonial order in order to realize your own, self-worth. It is also, cathartic in nature. So, violence is, key to him, and that's... but, I mean, he has been, criticized for, advocating, violence. But he says it is, sad necessity in, colonial situation in particular. I mean, there is no other way out. But after that, in the post-colonial world, I mean, he seems to be saying that, violence is not necessary, new humanism is, needed and other. And, I mean, here he, parts company with, Hannah Arendt. Because Hannah Arendt says that, power and violence are opposites. So if you exercise too much violence, then politics disappears. So you can't regenerate, violence and politics if there is too much violence. So in a way, it are like opposites for him. But for him, violence is a way to, unify the nation politically, and also to recover, psychological and also, emancipatory potential
of violence.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I think another thing that needs to be pointed out is that he is also deeply influenced by Lenin. And so, there is this unshakable faith in the collective will of people, which likens him to Rousseau, but there is also this unshakable belief that the Revolutionary Party is the only medium that will articulate that will. So that's very much a strong influence on Fanon. But moving, on to the other themes in The Wretched of the Earth, I want you to expound a little bit on the role of the colonized intellectual, nationalist political parties, the peasantry, the lumpen proletariat that he feels is absolutely essential to a struggle, which actually is also articulated by Sartre, who also feels that Sartre is deeply skeptical and deeply suspicious of post-colonial arrangements, because he says that the inheritors of post-colonial arrangements will seek to perpetuate colonial policies. And Fanon, of course, echoes that. But more on the other themes in The Wretched of the Earth other than violence.
Yes, I mean, other key themes are, one, in nationalist parties. And, in nationalist parties, according to him, are, formed on the pattern of, the metropolitan. Like if you are in Algeria, you form a party which looks like French party. So, yes, one key thing that, these parties are imports of the metropolitan. And then these parties are very much led by urban intellectuals. And these urban intellectuals are what he calls colonized intellectual, who actually lead these parties and act in the way because they absorb, colonial.
They've been educated in the colonial system, language, education, culture. Yeah.
And so as a result of this, these parties, remain confined to urban areas. But he says that they can't make much, progress in the urban areas because the people they are appealing to, they are often the employee of the colonial regime. Yes,
Yeah.
Civil servants, lower administrative, the workers and others. And he says these parties as a result are easy to manipulate, but unless they don't reach out to the rural masses, these parties, remain very much urban intellectuals and also the colonized. About, colonized, the intellectuals, he says that you cannot become real intellectual unless you don't link up, with the rural masses.
Yeah.
Unless you don't take part in the popular, struggles, and unless you are not, part of the national struggle. And what he says, as you engage with these, struggles, this, national culture is formed, and you also, begin to articulate the interests of the people rather than the metropolitan centers. So you will have to make, a definite, break with the metropolitan centers, and you will have to become the local intellectuals who, and if you look at how, nationalism and other, for example, there is this theory in, nationalism that all nationalisms are, cooked up by intellectuals who sit in cafes and they write books and, poetries, the local poetry, and they look at the archives. And, they put together a very, national vision and also the cultural, identity of the new nations. And, for example, yes, Jawaharlal, Nehru wrote the book, Discovery of India, which was Fanonian effort to form a nationalist project and of course to revive the identity of old India, which had been damaged by colonial impositions. So, that is, the role of, intellectuals. But third, key concept for which he has been, criticized a lot. Yes, because he worked with the interior of the Algerian, revolution movement. And I mean, interior was the one which was, fighting against the French on a daily basis. And exterior leader was, they were based in, Tunis. They were engaged in more, political
Mediation,
work,
negotiation,
political work,
yeah.
international work. So he always believed that interior should have, primacy over the exterior.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is where he learned a lot. And he says, rural population, because it is not much affected by, in colonial imposition. So it retains its heritage, essence, and also old, tradition. So they are most likely to be anti-colonial in their ways and in their thinking and in their temper. So I mean, that's why he says that they, and I think he also makes another, important point, because their, relationship with, land is very strong. So if you tell them that colonizer wants to take your land away from you, or when the colonizers leave and you will get land. So the peasantry has very, tangible interest in the question of land. So that really makes them very motivated to take up, liberation, in struggles. And even in, Pakistani context, Hamza Alvi wrote this, famous essay, Peasant and Revolution, in which he sort of advocated that if, the middle classes or the lower middle classes in urban, if I remember, correctly, that's my understanding, but I'm sure that's the case. And if they align with the, peasantry, they can, advance towards, revolution. And here he used, the works of Kolkatsky and others. And so I think, and also if you look at, Cuban Revolution, that's how, Fidel, Castro organized people in the, rural areas. And then, ultimately he, advanced on the capital and others when he, mobilized the other things.
Understood.
And I think the third or, the fourth point, about, lumpen, proletariat. Yes, here he made, break with Marxism in a way, because if you look at, in Marxist, there is industrial, proletariat and industrial bourgeoisie. So there is economic fight between the two. But here he is taking very, sociological view, and he said, liberation struggle is, joined by the people who are, pimps, outlaws, or bandits. Yes, bandits, vagabonds, and others, and also, lumpen proletariat. These are the castaways of, modernity, and because they have, nothing to lose. They have nothing to lose. So they join, liberation.
A lot of Wretched of the Earth, of course, is also, many have commented that, sometimes it feels that it's a flight of fancy. There is a lot that is, almost written in a dreamlike state. He's, of course, very ill also as he's working towards completing it. It is, sometimes he's writing in the pitch of fever. Certainly when Sartre and Simone Beauvoir encounter him in Italy, he is very ill. And that is a fantastic meeting. Of course, we've talked about that. 3 days they are holed up in an apartment. He greatly criticizes Sartre for taking him to a Italian trattoria, and he says that I'm done with this life of privilege and excess. He chastises Sartre for wanting to go to sleep early. He says, I dislike people who go to bed early. And for their part, Simone Beauvoir and Sartre are just absolutely astonished. They're looking at this man who, when he speaks, he has everybody's attention. Everybody cannot do anything but listen to him. He's prophetic almost, and they're mesmerized. And Simone Beauvoir says that Sartre, who would never miss his daily walk, has missed his walk for 3 days now. And I think at that point in time, Sartre is convinced that he will write the preface of Fanon's, seminal work. But also, the impact of Fanon on Sartre is so huge that when we read the preface, and please touch a little bit about that, and then I want to bring us sharply into focus in a local context and Fanon's importance in a local context. But the influence on Sartre is so great that when he writes the preface, Sartre, who has never talked about violence, is now almost becoming a proponent of violence, just like Fanon. You want to just comment on that?
Yes, 3 days which he, spent with, Sartre, yes, Ponty, Lanzmann, and Simone were very hectic and feverish. And if you read the account of, in Simone, she says he was on fire.
Yeah.
And if you put your hand on his hand, your hand was, likely to get burnt. So he was, so full of fire, his soul was on fire. And that's where the charge of the book comes from, basically, intellectual and, emotional and others. And that had, huge impact on Sartre, which you can see in the preface. I think in the preface, he makes, 3 or 4 key important things. One, he makes, very important point about post-colonial elite, which is, fabricated and, which is, most likely not to fulfill, the promise of the liberation. Second, he, justifies violence. He said the counter-revolutionary violence of the oppressed is absolutely justified against the colonial, regime. And Hannah Arendt thought that he had gone too far, and he had gone, beyond
a step ahead of Fanon.
Step ahead of Fanon, exactly. Yeah. Thank you. And so that's where, and where he also, in the preface, he also makes the point about the gaze, white gaze, how it, fixes the black in an, immutable, identities, and that has, economic, functions as well.
Understood.
And
Yeah. Now, of course, bringing this into context, in the third world today, in terms of the power imbalances that exist globally today, in the context, we can't ignore what's happening in Gaza. We can't ignore what is happening in other parts of the world, certainly. And the colonial project, while it is no longer colonial, continues. And Fanon, of course, is deeply critical of the post-colonial state. He describes it, he says there will be corruption, there will be xenophobic nationalism, there will be scarcity, persistent underdevelopment. All of these things fit very well with any, country in the third world today, certainly India, certainly Pakistan. So how is Fanon relevant to us, particularly in a Pakistani context?
Yeah. Let me make very brief point about where he is being read and where his writings are applied. In South Africa, also in Palestine. And if you look at both of these countries, they have been through what we call settler colonialism. And he was talking about colonialism, but yes, settler colonialism is more entrenched, form where, the colonizer wants to stay and, strangle the colonized. Yes,
Erase the
economically,
identity.
Erase the
Yeah.
identity of that. So that is, one thing. About the post-colonial state, Fanon's view was that this, colonial order is not going to go away. And they are going to perpetuate into post-colonial phase. And there are, a number of ways in which they will do.
Yeah.
One, they can force you into, defense pact, which, Pakistan did. Yes, Pakistan joined, SEATO and CENTO. They became, part of that. The second things, they would like to...
Economic arrangements.
Yes, economic arrangements. Through trade and others, they will control
Debt
the
financing
post-colonial
structures.
debt financing. Yes, through IMF or others,
World
which
Bank.
we have, the World Bank and
Yeah.
others. And third, if they don't like a regime, the post-colonial, regime, this I'm reading. This is not in his work, but if they don't like post-colonial regime, they can seek, regime change. And this is what did. Yes, Nkrumah
Also
was
yeah.
overthrown. And,
But
so
also a
many-
preference to support dictators.
Yes. And so, that's how, the post-colonial state. And he's, basically saying that, the post-colonial state, particularly, big bourgeoisie, it is, underdeveloped. It is, more interested in, networking with, European bourgeoisie. And it is more of, the manager of, the European capital. It has, the psyche of a businessman. It is not the captain of industry. And I think if we compare India and, the Pakistan, things were a bit different. Because in a way, Congress was bankrolled by, Tatas and Birlas, who were big, captain of industries, but in Pakistan, and he also makes the point that in post-colonial states, in certain situations, civilian service, bourgeoisie, takes over the state. And in Pakistan, the context, civilian and bureaucratic and, military complex took over, which is the argument of Hamza Saab as well. So, state became basically bureaucratic and, the military complex, which remains the case even today. And also about, the big bourgeoisie, he has, Fanon has, the contempt for it, literally. And he says that the bourgeoisie is, good for nothing of, the post-colonial society. And also says because they are underdeveloped, so the national consciousness is not developed in these, the society, where big bourgeoisie is not developed. And he said that, the big bourgeoisie of the post-colonial states want to look like the last, stage of the European bourgeoisie, without going through all
The stages.
stages of it.
All the phases.
And so in a way, and I think Pakistan, yes, you can see still, in civilian, military,
Combined.
bureaucratic,
Yeah.
The combined wholes, business is very weak. Yes, they are not innovators of anything. They are just, subsidy seekers and,
What
the
Fanon
self-seekers
describes
and
as,
others.
he describes it in very angry terms. He calls them small-time racketeers,
Racketeers.
rent-seeking
Rent-seeking.
racketeers is
Yeah.
how he describes
Yeah.
them,
Yeah.
which is certainly true of what we see today
Yeah.
in Pakistan also. But
and also bit, yes, coming back to Pakistan, the role of the state in how this big, bourgeoisie in Pakistan was developed. Yes, in the early phases under Ayub Khan and before that, state actively, encouraged to, stimulate these, business bourgeoisie through loans. This, Farooq was the head of this, Pakistan Industrial, Development Corporations. They gave loans. And as a result of those policy, 22 families, we got the 22 families, which, Dr. Mehboob ul Haq, talks very eloquently in his book, Poverty Curtain, and upon which, Bhutto Sahab built his, campaign against the, 22 families, because too much power was, concentrated on hand. But also, in relation to Pakistan, I would make another point. Bhutto Sahab wrote a book, Myth of Independence, which was exactly about the nature of the post-colonial state, which was not the genuine state. It was like, neo-colonial state. And so his whole, thesis was this myth of independence is an illusion. So I think we have some, intellectual or, political, work around it from a purely standpoint of a very intellectual politician, which was, the Zulfikar Ali Bhutto. So he hinted at, some of the
and he also
post-colonial
talks.
states.
Fanon also talks about the kind of leader that will emerge in the post-colonial state. And there's this brilliant passage about how he describes this dictator who will constantly keep the people embroiled and incensed with the visions of how the independence movement took place and how the struggle has finally awarded them with the freedom that they yearned for, and that they should constantly revisit it in their minds emotionally, passionately, recounting how essentially what a big struggle it was, and also the kind of dictator who constantly reminds them of his own heroic struggle, his own accomplishments, perhaps on the battlefield, perhaps on the sports field, but that kind of champion sort of boss, who he also describes as somebody who doesn't want to be any more than the CEO of this nation state. That's how he actually articulates it, Fanon. And later on also influences, interestingly, how V.S. Naipaul comes up with this ideology of this dictator. This idea of a dictator in A Bend in the River is also deeply influenced by Fanon. But I also want to talk about how Fanon has influenced scholars and intellectuals in Pakistan. So particularly you had, your views, and certainly you've been very familiar with Dr. Iqbal Ahmed. And Fanon, of course, has greatly inspired Dr. Iqbal Ahmed. Maybe you can touch upon that a little bit as we conclude.
Yes, Dr. Iqbal was also heavily involved with FLN and for Algerian, struggle for independence. He had, brief encounter with Fanon, because at the time Dr. Iqbal Sahab got to Tunis. Fanon was, living out his, the last days in, Tunis. He was about to fly to the, United States. So, they must have had a meeting, which, Dr. Iqbal mentioned in one of his interviews to Edward Said. And he was very much, influenced. He was a good analyst of, Fanon's work. And Iqbal, placed a lot of stress on way Iqbal, psychologized his, politics and his outlook. And one thing. Second thing, there was like a famous film made on Algerian Revolution, Battle for Algiers, in which Iqbal Sahab was involved very closely, and he has written a beautiful essay about it. That what the film was about. About coming to Edward Said. Edward Said was. It is actually very easy to imagine he must have been deeply influenced by his work, because he was involved in in practical, in struggle for the liberation of, Palestine. He was member of PLO. He was their intellectual spokesman in the way Fanon was for the Algerian Revolution. And also his work, Orientalism, because, one of the key insights of, Fanon's work, how, blacks are othered.
Yeah.
So I think this key insight was built upon Edward Said into his work, Orientalism, and in which he says, argues that Orient is, constructed in a particular way, it is othered, and this knowledge is used to aid, colonial penetrations and others. And he uses the example of how, French armies under, Napoleon Bonaparte, they went to Egypt and they brought a whole team of, scholars with them. And they manufactured a particular image of Egypt and, the Orient there, that was. And also in culture and imperialism, there are lots of insights from the Fanon. And yes, Edward Said always maintained that yes, though he used Foucault as well, but Said thinks that Foucault is very pessimistic about power, that you can't do anything about power, and so this breeds, pessimism in that. But on the other hand, the work of Fanon, gives you agency, and motivates for actions. And
it particularly informs Said's thesis that the importance of reclaiming identity and history of the colonized native is very important. It's not just simply about pushing the colonizer outside of the colony physically. It's about reclaiming the history and the narrative of the colonized, which is very important, which draws. I think, Dr. Arif, thank you so much for a fantastic, illuminating conversation. I think we've pretty much covered. We could go on and on, but I don't think we have time over here. I hope that you all enjoyed. Thank you so much for patiently listening to us. I think we may have some time for some questions if anybody is interested. Dr. Arif is, of course.
अच्छा, एक तो ये है कि जो कॉलोनाइजेशन, डी कॉलोनाइजेशन और पोस्ट कॉलोनियल स्टेट का जो एक बेस माइंड है, वेस्टर्नर्स, द गोराज who came to overtake the Asian African and went for the colonization, they were of the opinion कि we born to govern others, और वो ये भी कहते थे कि white is always right and black is always correct. So what is the mentality behind it? The way the Westerns had been, you can say, trained through free thinking, philosophy, and literature. That's why they were well-read, intellectual, institutional concept of life. But the Easterns, those who have been, you can say, trained through the sequencing of religion, only believe in God and life after death, but they have no concept of how to administrate the world. So you can say Britishers came here and they brought us out of chaos and put us into administration, and they gave a constitution.
What's
not the institution. Only you can say that एक जो टॉप क्लास बनती है वही प्लांट हुई है. जब गोरा यहाँ आता है एशिया अफ्रीका में, तो एक जो है वो क्लास पेश करता है जो सुप्रीम क्लास है. 150 साल के अंदर जब वो लोग अवेयर हो जाते हैं और रिएक्शन होने लगता है फिजिकली उनके अगेंस्ट, तो वो एक अपनी एक जमात या क्लास या अपनी एक एरिस्टोक्रेटिक पॉलिटिकल क्लास बनाते हैं. और लेकिन जो थॉट्स होते हैं वो नेशनल ही होते हैं, नेशनल की बुनियाद पर होता है, वो डीकोलोनाइजेशन होता है. लेकिन उनके वापस जाने के बाद हम देखते हैं कि न्यूक्लियस जो है वो कंट्रोल का वो इंटरनेशनल एस्टेब्लिशमेंट ही पर होता है, और नेशनलिज्म कोई चीज़ नहीं है. जस्ट जो है एक एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन की टॉप क्लास बना दी जाती है, मिडल और लोअर अभी भी वहीं सफरिंग में, और दे हैव नॉट गॉट द फ्रूट ऑफ व्हाट दे केम फॉर.
थैंक यू जी. नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन. थैंक यू.
Dr. Arif Azad, thank you very much for your informative talk. بھٹو صاحب کا ذکر آپ نے کیا ان اے پازیٹیو لائٹ, تو ڈو یو ٹیک ہم ایز اے سیریس مائنڈیڈ انٹلیکچوئل ریئلی؟ ریلیجن کے بارے میں ان کی جو اپروچ تھی, جو لفاظی وہ کرتے تھے, جو ڈیماگوگری کرتے تھے.
Yes, demagoguery is part of the, politicians' game. So that's fine with me. Yes, I do believe he was intellectual politician. His own self-definition of himself, I mean, in his last book was, a philosopher king. I tend to agree broadly. I think he was one of the more, and also, at the time he was born and, they grew up and the institution he attended, he was very much like influenced by anti-colonial thought. As I said, the myth of independence is a nod in that direction, one, and B, he took Pakistan out of, the CETO, CENTO, and also Commonwealth. The rest, politicians, yes, he always said, I am, a man in a hurry. And yes, as a man in a hurry, and given entrenched anti-democratic, the forces in the country, yes, he might have made, mistakes, but he, yes, gave, a people a voice, an identity, an outlook, and of course, respect. And for the first time, they felt they had, some stake in the system. And if you look at, the composition of, Pakistan People's Party, not of today, but of, 60, it actually built on all the existing social movements that came before us. And this you can actually transplant to any countries. Venezuela, in, Bolivia, yes, Morales came to power on the basis of, pre-existing social movements. So for any leader to transform politics, social forces are important. And I think one of the key insight of Fanon is exactly that, popular struggle, social forces, yes, economy, selfhood, yes, dignity of, human being. And that's what, the Bhutto gave to ordinary people to a large extent. Yes, we can always, disagree on other points.
Next question.
Sorry.
Wait, pass.
Thank you, Dr. Arif and Khayyam. بہت سیکھا میں نے آپ لوگوں سے. آج فرانس فینن کیوں, فرانس از ناؤ ہسٹری, آج ہم اس کو کیوں ڈسکس کر رہے ہیں؟ کیا آپ یہ سمجھتے ہیں کہ گلوبلائزیشن از آلسو اے سارٹ آف کولونائزیشن اینڈ دیر از اے نیڈ فار مومنٹ فار ڈی گلوبلائزیشن؟ کوشچن نمبر 1. اور دوسرا سوال یہ ہے کہ جب ہم یہ ساری ڈسکشن کر رہے ہیں تو ہمارا جتنا بھی نالج ہے وہی کولونائز پاور ہی سے آیا ہے, جو اس وقت نالج ہمارے پاس ہے. تو یہ جو نالج امپیریلزم ہے, ہم اس سے اپنے آپ کو کیسے چھٹکارا حاصل کر سکتے ہیں, اور کیا ہمارے انڈیجنس نالج کی بھی کوئی بیس بن سکتی ہے اپنے نالج کو آگے پروموٹ کرنے کے لیے؟ تھینک یو.
Yes, very important, very deep, yes, question, but I will venture some answers if it meets you. Yes, why is relevant? He is relevant کیونکہ دنیا کے حالات نہیں بدلے نا. ہم نے جیسے پوسٹ کلونیل اسٹیٹ از ایگزیکٹلی دا ریپلیکا آف دا کلونیل اسٹیٹ. Yes, international institutions, they have become, neo-colonial
Hegemons.
Yes, hegemons. And also, his, phrase is being used a lot by, Black Lives Matter. We revolt because we can't breathe. And this is literally true of, yes, police, brutalities in America and also to UK as well. Yes, black consciousness, they are still oppressed. He's, irrelevant. Yes, things he said about, big business, bourgeoisie. Yes, the role of, the colonized intellectual, and also big power politics. Oh, that, still hold true. So he is, relevant. And I'll just tell, because, we really need to reread him. And, that has been my effort, during the last 2-3 months. Because आजकल जो पाकिस्तान में नॉलेज दिया जा रहा है सारा वो ज़मीमों का है और ब्रोशर्स का
Tabloid.
एंकर से लेके वो सारी ओपिनियन एक किस्म की होती है बट वी रियली नीड टू रीथिंक एंड देयर आर की इनसाइट्स इन हिज वर्क जैसे मैंने कहा अबाउट यस हाउ टू डेवलप बिग बुर्जुआजी what should be the role of the colonized intellectuals or intellectuals for that matter. Yes, let's not use the term colonized intellectuals.
Also, I think he points out what is a false intellectual.
Yeah.
He really gives you a very clear description of what a false intellectual is. वो आपको बता देता है कि ये वो लोग हैं जो कि बैठ के अपने इंटेलेक्ट को और अपनी इंटेलेक्चुअल रेटरिक को इस्तेमाल करते हैं to actually pretend as if they are promoting a revolutionary cause or a decolonization program, but actually they are mimickers. They are actually deceivers, and they are hiding behind props, and they are actually throwing lights in your face to deceive you. And so it's very important. That is how he becomes even more relevant. कि अगर आप उसे पढ़ें तो आपको समझ में आता है कि ये तो दिस इज़ एग्जैक्टली हाउ इट एंड दीज आर द थिंग्स जो आज हमारे यहाँ बात नहीं की जा रही बिल्कुल भी किसी भी स्पेस में बैठ के हम नहीं बात करते हाउ एग्जैक्टली इज इट दैट वी आर बीइंग डिसीव्ड हम एकदम से अटैक करना शुरू करते हैं मेरी राय है हम पावर पे अटैक करना शुरू कर देते हैं हम इंस्टीट्यूशंस पे अटैक करते हैं बट वी डोंट रियली invest time in educating the people around us, young people around us, कि ये हो कैसे रहा है, how is it being done, and it has been done in the past. So I think that's how he is relevant.
And just to my points that has triggered, I think another of his key thing is that political parties should organize, and political education is the key thing, and this is not happening. There is no political agency exercised by political parties. And what he was, saying about this, civil service, bourgeoisie. आप, देखें पाकिस्तान is in, deep crisis. लेकिन, civil service की तनख्वाहें बढ़ रही हैं. Yes, house allowances बढ़ रहे हैं. Yes, economy is being controlled by some actors, only some actors, and people have no stake in the system. And so, these are, but just very quick point about, yes, globalization is actually an enemy of Fanon. उसने उसको खासा उसकी अहमियत को कम कर दिया, as you said. So we need decolonization, but also decolonizing knowledge and local, national culture in particular. And he has a view about national culture, which is that, national culture should be very internationalists in its expanse. It should not be nationalistic, as is the far right in Europe. And by the right, okay.
Just a moment.
Yes, knowledge centers are there. Knowledge is, that is a very long discussion. And as Fayez said, चले चलो कि वो मंजिल अभी नहीं आई, निजाते दीदा दिल की घड़ी नहीं आई.
अच्छा, please.
Thank you for a fantastic discussion. Really interesting. So my question, maybe to a little bit of, maybe to both of you, if you like to take it that way, but certainly to Arif Saab, is as we move past this post-colonial state, which is equally colonial, as you said, into the sort of era of the billionaire, where it's not really states at all that are able to control what big tech billionaire owners are choosing to do with their rocket launches and with your safety, security, your private information. What wisdom can we take from Fanon about, I mean, where our kids are part of an international society. Their cultural references are not what they're getting from their parents anymore, or even from their online in these subgroups. So, yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Sir.
Look, we are. I think some of his, basic key insights about state organization, popular struggles, I would still say they hold true. Look, Israel always says they have the bigger hand on the ground game. So first, we will have to, reimagine. The reimagine is much abused word in Pakistan. I don't know, who is, reimagining Pakistan. But Pakistan should be, reimagined by all people, not necessarily some institutions or some think tanks or others. So, that's where it is. About the power of the billionaires, look, billionaires in Pakistan, if you just take it, they are not like entrepreneurs or others. They have, grown fat on, racketeers, state subsidies or others. And maybe we need to open up the field more, free market and some institution. About the bigger thing about the big billionaires, they have, huge reach at the, in global scale, and they are influencing politics. Like Elon Musk is intervening in the UK politics everywhere. In American politics, and they are, directly responsible for changing the terms of debate on far right and also the politics. And if you are following UK, the way he has
attacked Labour.
Starmer and how he has hit back, and
it's a global conservative agenda that is trying to be promoted.
Yes, how to counter that, I have no answer, but maybe I think. But very good question. Thank you very much.
First, the gentleman there.
Sir.
Sir.
Arif Sahab, I've got two questions. One is that would you like to, just for the interest of the audience, reflect on the controversy surrounding Lumumba's assassination and Fran's, role in that, and the other, and it also tells us how the practical politics is, is a very different ball game. And the other thing is, you said that the anti-Semitism, he drew a lot of stuff from there, but the oppressed of the yesteryears have become the oppressors of today, And did Fanon had to say anything about it? So these are the two questions. And thank you very much for a fascinating discussion.
Yes, and your question about, Patrice Lumumba. Yeah. Yes, you are absolutely right. He always held himself
Accountable.
Accountable for the silent role he played in the assassination of him. Because at the time he was assassinated, he was in Congo. He would have, taken different positions. But what happened was, because the provisional government was based in, Tunis, and Habib, Bourguiba was very opposed to Patrice Lumumba. So I think it must have been decided at, political level. And I think he went to Congo to tell him that he should give up power and he should, resign or others. So, yes, his role in the murder of, the Patrice, Lumumba, not big, but he also held himself accountable for staying silent on the murder of his mentor, this, you know, I mean, Rahmane of the interior. I mean, he was assassinated, you know, I mean, strangled in an interfactional fight. And it was, you know, I mean, paraded as like, you know, I mean, killing in a shootout or something, but he was, you know, strangled. And I mean, Fanon knew about it, but he, you know, I mean, stayed, you know, silent at the time. But later on, he told Saath and others that I hold myself, you know, I mean, partly responsible for staying silent, and I mean, maybe aiding, you know, in the process. He might have, you know, like played some role to prevent it. So that is one thing. Yes, you are, you know, in referring to Israel, perhaps. Yes, I mean, it is unfortunately, you know, I mean, settler, you know, I mean, colonialism. This is the worst form of, you know, I mean, settler colonialism, and how it has extinguished, you know, I mean, resistance to its, you know, I mean, expansionist aim. I mean, it is the case in which, you know, like, I mean, colonizer has erased, you know, the colonized. And the whole world has looked, you know, I mean, silently.
Silent.
And it is, like, I mean, tragedy of our times. And it has been happening under our eyes. And even, you know, I mean, Islamic countries have kept mum about it. And, I mean, there is not, yes, a whisper or, you know, a murmur of, you know, protest about it.
I think... So, and then one last question.
Faisal sir.
Thank you, ji. Thank you, ji. Question तो नहीं है, एक assessment का सवाल है डॉक्टर साहब से भी और ख्याम साहब से भी कि पोस्ट पॉलिटिशियन के बाद हमारा जो लिटरेचर के साथ रिलेटेड है, हमारा जो लिटरेचर क्रिएट हुआ है या कॉपी पेस्ट हुआ है, जो नज़म है, जो गज़ल है, जो नावल है, जो कुछ भी आर्ट फॉर्म की डिफरेंट, तो उसको आप कैसे असेस करेंगे कि क्या हमारा लिटरेचर डीकोलोनाइज्ड हुआ है या नहीं हुआ है? यानी स्पेसिफिकली हमारी अपनी उर्दू लैंग्वेज है या जितनी भी हमारी दूसरी लैंग्वेजेस हैं, या जो कुछ इंग्लिश में इंग्लिश नावल लिखा गया है, इंग्लिश पोइट्री लिखी गई है, उर्दू लिखी गई है, तो कैसी असेसमेंट है कि किस हद तक हम डीकोलोनाइज्ड लिटरेचर हुआ है या ये फर्दर कोलोनाइज्ड हो गया है?
चले मेरे ख्याल एंटी कलोनियल या ये सब रेजिस्टेंस लिटरेचर तो पाकिस्तान में है ना. वाइल आई वाज डूइंग दिस तो फैज़ साहब और नून मीम राशिद के बहुत से शेर इसी टेम्पर में है ना. ये दाग दाग उजाला, ये शब गजीदा सहर, ये वो सहर तो नहीं जिसकी आरज़ू लेकर चले. दिस इज़ द पोस्ट कलोनियल स्टेट, you know. Yes, you know, लाजिम है वे हम अहले सफ़ा मरदूद अदम, you know, मसनद पे बिठाए जाएंगे. This is Fanon's, no? The last will be the first. Those who have nothing, they will have everything, you know, someday. इसी तरह I was very struck by Noon Mim Rashid's nazam Intiqam. I mean, if you read the chapter in you know, Black Skin White Mosque, there is a chapter when a black man marries a white woman. तो उसको जो you know फतह करने का होता है कि मैंने अपनी पूरी नस्ल का इंतकाम लिया है उसको शायद you know फतह करके. और वो उसकी राशिद की लाइन है ना, अजनबी औरत का जिस्म जिससे मैंने रात भर लिया था अपने अरबाबे वतन की बेबसी का इंतकाम. तो in a way, I mean, there are many shades and others which you can, you know, identify in the. लेकिन मैं इस पे बहुत ज़्यादा I can't shed light. Maybe this is something we can
Dr. Arshad Wahid.
हाँ जी, आपका सर सवाल
क्योंकि
आपका
वक्त कम है तो मैं बस मुख्तसर से ही सवाल करूँगा. थोड़ी सी कंफ्यूजन है, अगर आप उसको दूर कर दें. एक तो आपने जो मुझे यूँ लगा कि बहुत सी जो अपनी डिस्कशन में पोस्ट कॉलोनियल स्टेट के जो इश्यूज़ हैं उसको मिला दिया है जो एक कैपिटलिस्ट सोसाइटी के इश्यूज़ होते हैं. मसलन आपने कहा कि जी यहाँ पाकिस्तान में भी चंद लोग फैसले करने वाले हैं जो इकोनॉमी के हिसाब से. अगर आप दुनिया भर की जो कैपिटलिस्ट इकोनॉमीज़ देखें उसी में हैं, उसमें ये सारे स्ट्रक्चर उसी तरह मौजूद हैं, तो किसी तरह वो पोस्ट कॉलोनियल स्टेट से डिफरेंट नहीं है. मैं ये कहना चाह रहा हूँ कि 80 साल के बाद या 90 साल के बाद हम लोगों ने उसी चीज़ को फोकस किया हुआ है, हालांकि बहुत सारी चीज़ें बदल भी गई हैं. एक तो मैं अभी जैसे डीकोलोनाइजेशन ऑफ लिटरेचर की बात हो रही थी, हम यूँ समझते हैं कि जैसे एक ख़ास वक्त में कॉलोनियल रंग चढ़ा और अगले 4 साल के बाद वो रंग उतर गया. ऐसा हुआ नहीं, ना होता है. सोसाइटीज़ में बहुत सारी चीज़ें मिक्स हो जाती हैं. अगली जनरेशन में वो जो कैपिटलिस्ट सोसाइटी या कॉलोनाइजर्स और कॉलोनाइज्ड के मिक्स भी अच्छे बुरे दोनों असरात साथ साथ चलते रहते हैं. इस स्टेज पे 80 साल के बाद भी अगर हम ये कह रहे हैं कि वो यानी रंग धुलकर साफ बिल्कुल पवित्र और साफ हो गया है कि नहीं, तो वो मुमकिन भी नहीं है. ह्यूमन सोसाइटीज़ ऐसे नहीं हैं. सो मैं थोड़ा सा इसी पे कहना चाह रहा हूँ कि अब इंडिया की मिसाल लें, वो भी एक पोस्ट कॉलोनियल स्टेट है, लेकिन उसमें बहुत सारी डिफरेंट वॉक्स ऑफ लाइफ में बहुत तरक्की की है. सो आप बात शुरू हुई थी रेलेवेंस ऑफ फ्रांस फैनन की. इसकी अपनी मेरा ख्याल बहुत ज़्यादा एकेडमिक वैल्यूज़ तो मौजूद हैं, लेकिन हमें ये भी देखना चाहिए कि ज़िंदगी और सोसाइटीज़ जो हैं वो 1960 की अब नहीं हैं. देयर हैव लॉट ऑफ चेंजेस हैव हैपेंड और उसको एक नए पर्सपेक्टिव से एनालाइज करने की जरूरत है.
very good question. Let me think. देखें, जो आप कह रहे हैं ना, बाहर के मुल्कों में भी फैसले चंद लोग करते हैं. ठीक, आई एग्री विथ यू, लेकिन चंद लोगों के नीचे जितना स्ट्रक्चर है वो बहुत ज़्यादा डेमोक्रेटिक है. उसमें जो इनइक्वालिटीज़ जो हैं वो कम हैं, पॉलिटिकल प्रोसेस है, लोग उसमें शामिल होते हैं. आर्टिस्टिक एंड कल्चरल लाइफ इज़ वेरी गुड, फ्रीडम ऑफ एक्सप्रेशन, ह्यूमन राइट्स और उसका मार्केट का ऑपरेशंस. सो इन अ वे वो हमारे यहाँ नहीं हो रहा ना. हमारे यहाँ तो वही एक किस्म का है, बाकी काम रुका हुआ है. वेल्थ की मतलब ट्रिकल डाउन भी अगर वर्ल्ड बैंक ने कहा या IMF ने कहा तो वो होता नहीं है. अभी भी तनख्वाहें उनकी बढ़ रही हैं जो ऊपर के लोग हैं. तो एक तो ये है. दूसरा, yes, there is argument. Yes, he is a voice. Yes, I mean from a vanished world. In a way, it's right. But that vanished voice also, breaks through to the current, the moment. और that's why उस पे एकेडेमिया में भी काम हो रहा है. मतलब लिटरेचर पे उसका बहुत ज़्यादा इन्फ्लुएंस है. अच्छा, पॉलिटिकल स्ट्रगल गाज़ा के हवाले से बहुत ज़्यादा फैनन को पढ़ा गया. एंड दैट इज़ द की रोल इन द करेंट थिंग्स. सो
I think I just want to add, Dr. Saab, I think Fanon also points out that जो पोस्ट कॉलोनियल स्टेट है जिसकी आप बात कर रहे हैं, उसमें जो एक प्रोजेक्ट है ना, साइकोलॉजिकल कॉन्क्वेस्ट और एक्सप्लॉयटेशन का ऑफ द पोस्ट कॉलोनियल सब्जेक्ट, और रादर द फॉर्मर colonized subject, that is unending, and it continues through cultural subjugation, cultural dominance. आप सही कह रहे हैं, the world has changed, technology, media, but what has happened? I mean, essentially, the West continues to beam down this entire cultural project across the global South, and it impresses upon the global South and the developing countries of the world that there is a certain ideal way of life, a Western way of life, Western values, Western culture, dress, norms, and it is very seductive. But that project, according to Fanon, is not an apolitical project. It is a political project. And they will never stop at doing that. So I think the relevance जो है Fanon की, which you're right in saying that वो relevance actually वो काफ़ी relevant हो गया है, because Fanon ये बताता है कि आपने इसको counter कैसे करना है. How are you going to organize yourself to counter it? And as Dr. Saab pointed out, that the essence and the focus of Fanon and Sartre and Hannah Arendt are all on organizing political activity for the emancipation, from subjugation, which is devoid and absent right now. So you're very right कि ऐसा भी नहीं कि सब कुछ ही खराब है, बहुत सी अच्छी चीज़ें भी हैं, but largely the power imbalance that exists globally is a project, is a post-colonial, neo-colonial project. जी.
हाँ जी,
Faisal साहब.
जी.
Thank you very much for this fascinating and very insightful talk and moderation too. मेरे जहन में ये आ रहा था कि आपने फूको की बात की और फैनन के साथ उसको एक्सट्रापोज किया. फूको का जो एक फेमस फ्रेज़ है कि रेवोल्यूशन इज़ यूजलेस, मुझे लगता है कि वो शायद किसी हद तक एक ट्रू पिक्चर है. इसके बाद मेरा क्वेश्चन मैं रेज करता हूँ कि वो क्या है. ट्रू इन द सेंस कि अगर मैं एक लम्हे के लिए ये कैटेगरीज जो हैं इसको हटा दूँ, कलोनियल एंड डीकोलोनाइजेशन की, तो ह्यूमन जो लाइफ है, ह्यूमन्स जिस तरह लिव करते हैं, और अगर आप मुझे इजाज़त दें तो मैं युवाल हरारी का यूज़ कर लूँ इसमें रेफरेंस. वो ये कहता है कि ये ह्यूमन्स क्रिएट स्टोरीज टू क्रिएट हायरार्कीज़. अपने माइक्रो इंटरेक्शन में भी वो जो कंट्रोल मैकेनिज़म्स हैं उसको ऑपरेशनलाइज करते हैं. ऑप्रेस्ड ऑल्सो हैव विदिन देमसेल्व्स ऑप्रेसर्स एंड ऑप्रेस्ड. सो ये जो हायरार्की है, दिस इज़ एट वेरी माइक्रो टू मैक्रो लेवल्स, ये रहती है ह्यूमन्स के अंदर. Perhaps this colonization and decolonization is accumulation and distribution question, and it keeps on going in human societies. इस बुनियाद पे मुझे लगता है कि जो फूको ने कहा था, perhaps that is more important in the sense that it is a never-ending project. So every movement for liberation creates a class of people which creates its own colonization. थोड़ा सा इस पे ज़रा बताइएगा कि
सही है.
Look, I mean, Edward Said said that, I mean, as I, said earlier, that, I mean, Foucault has been very pessimistic about changing the dynamics of power and how the architecture of knowledge is produced and maintained. Dekhiye, I mean, quest for new possibilities, changing social orders, or engaging, a people to think about their life in a new way, I mean, has always been quest. Or, I mean, this actually links to this, Mazhar Saab points as well. Alternative, and also Harari as well. Alternative viewpoints of the oppressed is also important. That's why, in subaltern studies or, people struggles, histories are also being written. Although some of the, struggles have been termed, terrorism. And, that has, put a, stop to some, political aspiration of the lower classes. But, this is ongoing, and, you may not call it, revolution, but, social change, because, using the word of, it is, meta word and, the overthrow of the existing orders, but a lot of, the things within that. So,
Dr. Arif, final question by me. Thank you. एक चीज़ जो कि which is very fascinating is कि when we look at Fanon and when we look at the literary political influences on Fanon, we are also because this is France, so we can see that there is a lot of intellectual rigor in the French left, which causes the entire French left, and certainly all the intellectuals in France, to be deeply incensed with the occupation of these colonies and their liberation. But we don't see such intellectual rigor present in the immediate antecedent to the Algerian liberation, which is present in the British Empire. And the entire British colonial experience continues, but there is you don't find that intellectual rigor opposing Britain's colonization project across the world as you find it in France, even though they are neighbors. That is very fascinating. You want to just touch on that?
This is $1 million question. I think, yes, I mean, French anti-colonial thought is very advanced and charged. And one reason which I can just speculate for that is that, yes, in France, colonialism is like, totalizing. We have to make all people French. Okay, there is no room for local, culture or
religion.
Yes, religion and others. You have to be
French
secular. That's it. And also, racism. This all, so ties in with very deep interest. I think that drew reactions from intellectuals. And I think earlier works on anti-colonialism, they were very charged, well argued. It's very literary.
Very literary. George Orwell.
No.
In France. Okay, sorry.
So, yes, the first person to do was Aimé César, his book on, colonialism and Return to My Native. And, second, Albert Memmi is a very important figure. He wrote book, The Colonizer and The Colonized, which is a very political tract. And then comes, Fanon. I think, British colonialism was much more nuanced in terms of, managing
the colonies.
Communities.
Yeah, the community.
They created knowledge around, biradris and others. And, divide and rule was very much the guiding, the principle. That might have, blunted the, charge of anti-colonial, thought in British. But, there were many, British who came to fight against the whites, against the colonizers in India. And there is a very good book out by, Ramachandran, Goha on, I think, the whites who fought for India or something. And there is a very good book by our friend, Priya Gopal, Insurgent Empire, and in which she makes the argument that the people who came to work in anti-colonial struggle in India, when they went back to England, they, educated, local population about, the experiences of India. And, this was the process which he called, reverse tutelage. Because, colonialism is basically, civilizational mission. You can only grow under the, tutelage of, the British or the French and others. So I think this is very, interesting argument, reverse, tutelage and others. But I think anti-colonial work are not as charged or as, rigorously and, passionately argued as in
I want to say that in Orwell you find a lot of passion. If you read Burmese Days, if you read Homage to Catalonia, there is a lot. But he's of course
he's a colonizer.
He's a colonizer. He belongs to the colonizer. Yeah. But no, I'm saying that because
I'm just saying the people who are the colonized, they produce this work against the colonizer.
Yeah.
So this was, Fanon, Albert Memmi, yes, Amy Césars and others from the African or French traditions. I mean, that is what I think.
Noted. Sir, time. آخری کوشچن جی, وہ پیچھے سے بہت دیر سے کر رہے ہیں, اصل میں آپ سے بھی پہلے سے وہ.
سر میرا کوشچن ہے کہ ہم جب کالونیلائزیشن کے نام کو سنتے ہیں تو ہمارے دماغ میں یہ کیوں آتا ہے کہ کالونیل پاور جو ہوتی ہے وہ باہر سے آنے والے ہی کو کہتے ہیں. کیا اس ملک کے اندر ایسے ایک صوبہ یا ایک اسٹیٹ یا ایک ادارہ جو باقی تینوں صوبوں کے حقوق کو سلب کر رہا ہے, کھا رہا ہے اور اس کے آواز کو بھی دبا رہا ہے, کیا یہ استعمار کی تعریف میں نہیں آتی؟ دوسری بات سر, دوسرا کوشچن یہ ہے کہ زبان کی یہاں پر بات کی کہ وہ کالونائزڈ ہوا ہے یا شعور کالونائزڈ ہوا ہے, تو سر یہ جو باقی لوگ تو چھوڑے, ہم یہاں پر بیٹھ کے انگلش میں لکھا ہوا, انگلش میں پڑھا ہوا چیز, کیا یہ زبان کی زوال کی طرف ہم نہیں جا رہے؟ تھینک یو.
نہیں, کس کا, اردو زبان کا یا ہم مطلب لوکل زبان نہیں بول رہے؟ ہاں, اوکے. لک آئی مین ایز فار دا لینگویج, میرا خیال ہے ہماری جو انگریزی بھی اردو کی طرح ہی ہو گئی ہے, آپس کی بات ہے. آئی مین اف یو کمپیئر ود دا لیول آف اسپوکن اینڈ ریٹن انگلش اور اسکالرشپ ایز کمپیئر ٹو انڈیا اور ادرز وی آر دا فار بلو, تو میرا خیال ہے دونوں لینگویجز میں ہوئی ہے. اردو میں شاید, اچھا اوکے, آئی مین لیٹ می آنسر یور second questions. Yes, internal colonialism, reproduces the feature of external colonialism. And I mean, Pakistan has been in this state for a long time, unfortunately. And it is becoming more and more apparent. And the issues around, violence are very key. I mean, that's why he has, Sartre says in his, preface, he makes the point that, torture represents an excess of war. The way violence and, these things are happening in Pakistan, these are, the features of that. وہ جو ایک صوبہ دوسرے صوبے کو, میرا خیال ہے that is all debate. اسٹرکچرز ہی ایسے ہیں اور اس میں بہت سا اس میں رول ہو سکتا ہے کچھ لوگوں کا, لیکن میرا خیال ہے تھنگز ہیو گون بیانڈ اینڈ انٹرنل colonialism has taken its own form, I believe.
جی سر, آخری پلیز.
السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ. میرا نام عابد ہے. میرے بیگ پہ لیفٹ سائڈ پہ ایک ساتھی نے بڑا انٹرسٹنگ پوائنٹ اٹھایا, دا ڈی کالونائزیشن آف انٹلیکچویلٹی, کہ یورپ کی فکری آزادی سے کیسے نجات حاصل کی جا سکتی ہے. فیلن پہ آپ حضرات کی گفتگو بہت فیسینیٹنگ تھی, اور میرا تعلق اقبالیات سے ہے, تو میں اس پوائنٹ کو تھوڑا ایڈ کروں گا. اینڈ آئی ووڈ لائک ٹو گیو آل آف یو اے ویری گڈ کنکلوژن. جب فینن صاحب پیدا ہوئے تھے, جی بہت, یہ سر یہ جو انٹلیکچویلٹی کی بات ہے, اس کا حل علامہ اقبال رحمۃ اللہ علیہ 1929 میں اپنے خطبات میں دے چکے ہیں. دا ریکنسٹرکشن آف ریلیجس تھاٹ ان اسلام, اس کے پہلے خطبے کے پیج نمبر 6 پر سر آپ کے سوال کا بہت خوبصورت جواب موجود ہے. چونکہ یہ مجھے وقت نہیں دے رہے ہیں, سو دیر فور آئی ایم اونلی ٹیلنگ یو دا پیج. تو نمبر 2, پوسٹ کالونیل اسٹیٹ کے مسئلے کے حل کے لیے, کہ اس مسئلے کسی ساتھی نے پوچھا تھا کہ موجودہ حالات میں ہم فینن سے کیا رہنمائی حاصل کر سکتے ہیں, تو میری تجویز یہ ہوگی کہ علامہ اقبال کے 3 سیاسی خطبے, خطبہ الہ آباد, خطبہ لاہور اور خطبہ علی گڑھ, فینن کے مقابلے میں ہم ہمیں بہت اچھی طرح گائیڈ کرتے ہیں پوسٹ کالونیل اسٹیٹ میں اپنے مسائل کو حل کرنے کے لیے. اور آخری بات کہ علامہ کی ایک معرکۃ الآراء کتاب بال جبریل، اس کے آج 90 سال پورے ہو چکے ہیں. اٹ واز پبلشڈ آن 25 جنوری 1935. تو پلیز اپنی فینن سے آشنا ہو جائیے اور تمام مسائل کا حل ہمارے پاس موجود ہے. بہت بہت شکریہ.
بہت شکریہ. آپ سے اتفاق ہے جی. مطلب اقبال کا پہاڑ اور چوہا نظم ہے تو ہم تو ویسے ہی.
سر ایک کوئک کویشچن وہ یہ کہ جو ایک ریزن ہے کہ کولونیلزم، بائی دا وے یہ بھی جو کولونائزرز ہیں انہوں نے یہ اسٹرکچرز کہ جی کولونیلزم، آئی تھنک شاید اس کی ہوئی ہو، میں سوری لیٹ آیا. اس میں جو ایک چیز ہے جو مجھے لگتا ہے جس وجہ سے لوگ اس سے دور جاتے ہیں، اس اسٹرکچر کی طرف نہیں آتے، وہ وکٹم، کہ جی اپنے آپ کو وکٹم سمجھنا. تو اگر ہم مطلب ایٹ دا ریسیونگ اینڈ آف کولونائزیشن اور اس کے بعد میں پھر کیا افیکٹ ہوا اور اسی انالیسس میں رہیں گے تو وہ تو ایک طرح سے پرپیچویٹ ہو جائے گا جو وکٹم ہوڈ ہے. اور اگر وہ سوچنا مطلب ظاہر ہے سمجھنا ضروری ہے، لیکن اس کے پھر بیونڈ اس کو تھوڑا بھولنا بھی ضروری ہے. تو اس کے بارے میں آپ کا کیا خیال ہے؟
نہیں، یہ تو نجات دیدہ و دل کی گھڑی نہیں آئی، چلے چلو کہ وہ منزل ابھی نہیں آئی. تو کوئی اس میں وکٹم کی بات نہیں ہے، ایجنسی کی بات ہے. اینڈ آئی تھنک ایوری ایفرٹ شوڈ بی میڈ ہاؤ ٹو انرجائز ایجنسیز، how to stimulate popular struggles, knowledge, لوگوں کی associations, political formations اور صحیح معنوں میں political democratic processes.
Thank you audience for your participation. Thank you Dr. Arif Azad. بہت شکریہ.
Thank you very much for coming and a very, very interesting session.